If you use TurboTax to file your tax returns and you expect to be a beneficiary of the latest round of stimulus checks, or perhaps you were eligible in the prior rounds of stimulus checks and for whatever reason you did not receive it, then I've got some very important information to share with you to make sure you get the money you're supposed to be getting. So stay tuned. Hey folks, Richard Walls here, and if we're meeting for the first time, what this channel is all about is helping you with career development and personal finance. So if those two topics are of any interest to you, then I'd highly recommend subscribing down below and hitting the notification bell so you get notified of when I post new content. So with that said, let's talk TurboTax and stimulus checks. First of all, hopefully by now you have some idea of whether you're eligible for the latest round of stimulus checks per the American Rescue Plan bill signed into law March 11th. And of course, this actually follows more or less in line with what the eligibility was before for the prior rounds of stimulus checks. But let me just recap that for you right now. So you get $1,400 for every eligible taxpayer and dependent in a household. And to be eligible, your household income, really your adjusted gross income, has to be less than $75,000 if you're a single filer, or $150,000 if married filing jointly. Now, as far as what you need to do to get this check, nothing. You don't need to do anything. The government is proactively sending out these checks to whoever is eligible, and as was the case for the previous rounds. But here's what you need to know. The way the IRS determines eligibility is based off of your adjusted gross income from your latest filed tax return. So in many cases, that might be your 2019 tax return that you filed last year, or your 2020 tax return if you already went ahead and filed it this year. And the way the IRS determines where to send that stimulus check to is also based on your most recent tax return. So if you were using TurboTax, whatever bank information you included on there for the government to send you your tax return, your refund rather, that's what the IRS is going to use for the stimulus. However, there have been reports where there's a small percentage of people that received the stimulus check in the wrong bank account. It could have been a bank account that was already closed, or for whatever reason went to a bank that they didn't want it to go to. And this was reported by users of TurboTax, H&R Block. So I would make sure that if you're expecting to receive the check, just make sure you check the bank account that you're intending it for it to go to, and possibly think about, what other bank accounts might have you included in your latest TurboTax filing. So if you're concerned about that situation happening to you, one thing I might recommend is, if you haven't already done your 2020 tax return, it might be something worth doing as soon as possible, so that whenever you file that return, you can make sure to include the most up-to-date bank information, the correct account that you really want the stimulus check to go to, as well as your refund. But given that the stimulus checks are in the process of being processed, it may or may not actually help you, but it is something to consider. It might help. It just really depends on how far along in the process the IRS is in issuing you your stimulus check. I'd also add that if your 2020 financial and family picture changed pretty dramatically because of what happened last year, maybe there was job loss or income loss, or maybe you brought a child into this world, maybe you have some new dependents you're taking care of, that could make it a little bit more advantageous to you to go ahead and file that return now, so you can essentially claim what you are actually eligible for. Now, to make one thing clear, I am not a tax expert at all. If you have any doubts or questions, everyone's situation is different. I would recommend you go to TurboTax. There's live help, there's consultants that can help you address some of the questions that you might have, or go to someone else that can help. But again, these are some things that I'm just recommending that you keep in mind as you go along the process. And I think for that probably deserves a like down below. I think that's fair to say. And the good news about the stimulus check is that it is considered a tax credit. It's not taxable income. So come next year, when you do your 2021 tax return through TurboTax, there's nothing really you have to do in the way of paying taxes on that. If for some reason you were eligible for the previous rounds of stimulus checks that were distributed in 2020, and for some reason you never received them, when you file your 2020 tax return, you can go ahead and claim that in the form of a rebate through TurboTax. And as you go through your tax return, TurboTax does a really good job of assessing your financial picture and prompting you, depending on what that situation or what that picture looks like, here are the situations that might apply to you. So in the case of the relief or the stimulus checks last year, it'll prompt you about those to see, one, are you eligible? And if so, did you receive those checks? And if not, you can claim them here in the form of a recovery rebate, which would ultimately look like a tax credit. And apart from that, TurboTax offers many great resources on helping you determine your eligibility as it relates to the stimulus checks and other parts of the relief bill that might apply to your situation. So make sure to check out the links that I provided in the description below to get a more complete picture of what this relief bill looks like and what might apply to you. And of course, when you go through your tax return on TurboTax, whatever cases apply to you, TurboTax will identify those and prompt you about it so that you can get the best possible refund. So with that said, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you around.